So it's finally time to start working on the Subaru. I can't handle it anymore. I gotta get working on it to just figure out what the problem is. First thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take off this air filter cover. It's got Allen wrenches, and then take off the band that's holding the filter on. I already pulled the plug off of it, and then I'll get to the battery, take the battery off so we don't have any electricity going through everything. Got the filter, and the way that you have to take them off is you push this down. You push your filter down to get it around, and then you can turn it around and pull it back up. But since I don't really need to undo it, I'm just gonna have it sit down there for a second. And next we've got these two screws. There's a screw down here. We're gonna take this box out, this air filter off, and probably this connector, and anything else that's really, the catch can cables are coming off, this big wire loom, intercooler will come off. I think that's, I'm gonna try to keep AC connected. One thing that's a good tip is if you're not gonna label these, I don't want to label all these bolts, so I just put them back in where they go, and then when you go to put it back in, you will always have your bolts back where they're at. And the same goes with hose clamps. So this can fall off right now, but if you just tighten it up, you know that hose clamp goes right there, and then when you go to put it back together, it's already there for you. With the spark plugs, there's a 12 mil bolt that's on the back side, and you undo that, and then you can pull most of them out. The driver's side is going to be a little tough, but then you have a tab that's on it right here that you pull up, and you pull up on it and you can slide it out, and it slides out. And it's not necessary, but I like to put things back to where they go. So this is for the number 2 piston, so I'm going to put a number 2, let's put it on the back side so we don't really see it, but I'll put a 2 on it. That way I know that that goes to the number 2 piston. So that one's out, and we'll get the rest of them out too. Finally got a lot of progress done on it. We got the air box out, we got the alternator off, the intercooler piping, I got my catch cans out. I'm pretty well done with doing the passenger side. I have this main harness to do, but I'm trying to keep it together because I want to lock the car up. That's why I still have the battery in. So I'm going to keep this on until probably pretty close to the last thing, but I'm going to take the power steering off, and hopefully I can leave it sitting over here in the airbox, because otherwise I have to drain it, and there's coolant hoses that go different places, and then the same with the AC. The AC kind of goes, well, up to the condenser and then back, so hopefully I can pull the AC off and set it where the battery is currently, because I'll take the battery out once that gets out, and then I should be pretty well good to go. I'll have to take the fuel lines off. Yeah, I think that's about it. Fuel lines can be pretty easy. What I was doing is taking a zip tie, cut it in half to get the thickness, and then there's notches on here that you want to be 90 degrees from. There's a notch on each side, there's one on there. So get this to a flat surface and just push it in. You can feel the tab push up when you push it in. Put both of them in there on both sides, and I can't start the car, so there's going to be fuel that comes out of this, but you can push on both of them and it will slide right off. Got a rag right here to catch the fuel. There you go, they're both off. This is what the camera actually looks like when we're looking into the engine. So I went through the spark plug holes, and I can look at the top of the pistons with this little camera. I did a terrible job of keeping up with the videos last night, but we went and got everything pulled on it, and I'll show you the engine bay and the engine here in a second. It's a strange sight to pull your hood up and have nothing sitting in there. So we got our flywheel and throw out one thing that hung us up for a while. I didn't know that this pin was in here. This pin sits back in that hole and goes through the fork. So your fork, that pin will go all the way through, so it gives your fork something to pivot on. When you push on your clutch, it'll pull it out on your throwout bearing. That threw us for a loop. It has this giant bolt that you have to pull out first, and then I just found one of the Subaru bolts to thread in there. Then you stick a screwdriver in and slowly pull it out, and then grab it with some pliers, pull it out. So I got a little bit of cleaning to do. Managed to keep the AC sitting there. I'm not happy about that bend, but it's okay. And the power steering is all sitting down here underneath the coolant hoses. So that's worked out pretty slick. We had to undo the pitch stop mount so we could go under and jack the car up, or the transmission up, to get the motor mounts out. We've got the jack stands and the starter sitting down there. Had to undo the sway bar to get to the motor mounts. Here it is. The engine's finally sitting in the garage. I went through and took a vacuum and cleaned out all these little crevices. It's got sand in it. And I went to pull this first valve cover off last night, and sand just fell from the top right into the engine, so I'll have to clean that out. It's not a huge deal. Went and had the oil, put an oil pan underneath it and drain the oil out of it. You can see the valves down in there, and you can turn the engine. I went and checked that the pistons were all in, out of the way, but you can see them open and close. If I can turn the engine over. There you can see them opening and closing. So they do work, but on this side, when I was trying to open and close them, it's so hard to get it to turn over. So I'm betting that this side has some bent valves, and they're just bent and trying to go through a straight piece, but they've got a bend in it to where it's hanging up on it, and it's making it a lot harder to turn. So got valves coming at least. I'll tear this apart to see what I actually need to order. Here's the valve cover. Pull that off. Definitely want to clean the inside of the engine out. I use AMSOIL on it, but it looks like it's just got a lot of gunk in it, maybe from previous owners, or I don't know, but definitely going to go through and clean a lot of it out. But I don't see any scarring. Oh, I don't see any scarring on the lobes. So I won't know more until I get in there and actually start taking things apart. So the next step is we're going to be pulling this off. We're going to be pulling the cams out, and then we're going to be pulling these heads off, and then we'll be able to see our valves from that. So here's the majority of the parts that I've got hanging out. We've got the downpipe sitting there, alternator, battery in the back, the radiator, AC, that's the AC bracket, and then the whole crossover with the throttle body and all the plugs and stuff. It was kind of hard to get the plugs out because you kind of have to pull on it a little bit to see what's hanging you up, and then undo it and pull on it and see what's hanging you up. You don't want to slide this across the bottom or the ground, because that's where it mounts, and you want that to be a perfectly flat surface. So keeping it here, we're not going to move it too much, and if we do, we lift it straight up. Another thing that was hard was connecting to the turbo. You have to pull it off the turbo, and then there's a pipe that sits right here that you have to lift up. So you have to kind of pull out and lift up at the same time, and it was kind of tedious, but it finally came out. This is on the wrong side, so I couldn't take this pipe off, the blow-off valve or recirculating pipe. So that would have been a lot easier if I could have took that off, and then I could have managed to probably pull this whole thing out. But there's most of those parts. We've got our clutch sitting over here, and it looks like I'm pretty far down on all my material. You can't even see where is one? The pucks are almost closed. I guess I still got a little more life than I thought, but you can kind of see the hash marks in them, and they're pretty well gone, so probably get a new one of those. Intercooler, pipes, oil coolers, a bunch of random stuff, coolant overflow, another coolant overflow. Yeah, that should be all the parts. I got some new ones that actually came in. Got the water pump, which I was actually planning on doing, but it went and blew up on me before I had time to do it, and a couple extra parts. There's some more parts in there. I want to thank you guys for watching today's video. It's been eye-opening. I've never taken a Subaru motor out. I've taken plenty of motors out, but never a Subaru motor. So I got to learn a little bit with it. Now, the next step for me is to get this engine apart, start cleaning it, and figure out what parts I need to order. So right now I'm probably going to go and get my valves, at least my valves and my new valve springs and a couple other things just that I know is wrong. And that way I can kind of break it up so I don't have to pay a big lump sum all at once, and I'll slowly have parts trickling in. Anyways, thank you guys again for watching. Stay up to date. We're going to get this thing put back together and in the car, hopefully sooner than later, and we're going to have our car again, so I'm pretty stoked about that. Good thing it's going into winter and I'm not going to need my car as much, but it's still nice to have that all-wheel drive car in the winter because we've got mainly front-wheel drive. Well, I guess we've only got 2 front-wheel drive cars, but it's still nice to have that backup car if you need it. Thanks, guys. Have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.